Have you ever felt trapped by forces beyond your control? Maybe it's the constant barrage of negativity from others or the weight of unjust circumstances pressing you down. You're not alone. The Bible is filled with stories of people who face tremendous adversity, and Psalm 109 offers us a powerful prayer for overcoming evil and breaking free from the traps set by our enemies. In a world where injustice seems rampant, this prayer reminds us that we don't have to fight our battles alone. It shows us how to call on God for divine intervention and deliverance, trusting that He will rise up to protect and guide us through the darkest moments. But here's the twist. What if this prayer, this ancient plea for justice, could be the key to transforming your life and unlocking the divine protection you need? Let's dive into the power of Psalm 109, and together, we'll uncover how this prayer can shift the course of your life. Have you ever faced moments in life when everything seems stacked against you? The enemies, both visible and invisible, gather like storm clouds, ready to strike. In times like these, we turn to the powerful prayers that can call upon the Almighty, just as King David did in Psalm 109. He cried out to God for justice, asking for divine intervention against those who slandered him. It's in these prayers that we find the authority to stand firm against evil forces and trust that God hears our pleas. Just imagine a situation where someone tries to pull you down, whether through false accusations or malicious intent. It can feel like you're drowning in a sea of negativity, right? But here's where divine protection steps in. Just as David sought God's intervention to defeat his enemies, we too can pray for protection. God is always ready to respond when His children cry out. It's a matter of aligning our hearts with His purpose, trusting that His justice will prevail, no matter the magnitude of the struggle. When we pray for justice, we're not just asking for a solution to our problems. We're calling on the Bible's promises that God will not leave us defenseless against those who wish us harm. This is the same divine justice that has been woven through the Scriptures since the beginning of time. So, every time you face an unjust situation, think of it as an opportunity to call upon the Lord's mighty protection. And remember, no weapon formed against you will prosper. There's a deep comfort in knowing that, no matter what we face, God is our refuge and shield. Imagine being surrounded by a storm, chaotic, loud, and overwhelming. It's easy to feel small and vulnerable in those moments. But then, you realize that God is like a fortress, standing tall and unshakable. He is our protection, our place of safety in times of trouble. When life gets rough, we don't need to fight the battles alone. We can lean on God's strength, trusting that He will frustrate the enemy's plans and turn what was meant for harm into a blessing. Think of how often we try to handle everything on our own, especially when we feel cornered. But God is asking us to rest in Him. Just as a soldier takes refuge behind a fortified wall, we too can take refuge in God's promise of protection. This doesn't mean we won't face difficulties, but it assures us that no matter what we face, we're never without help. When we pray, we tap into this divine shield, a layer of spiritual armor that surrounds us with peace, no matter how chaotic the situation. In these moments of difficulty, it's essential to turn to God. Remember the words of the Bible. The Lord is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. Psalm 91 verse 2. This is not just a statement. It's a powerful reminder that we have access to divine protection. God is our refuge, and He's always there to frustrate the enemy's schemes. When we pray, we invoke this promise, and He responds, bringing peace, strength, and a shield that never falters. Life often presents us with invisible chains, fears, anxieties, and sadness that weigh us down, preventing us from experiencing true freedom. It's not just about physical burdens, but the emotional and spiritual chains that hold us captive. In times like this, a prayer for spiritual and emotional freedom becomes our lifeline. When we call out to God, we're not just asking for a change in our circumstances, but for a deep, transformative release. God is ready to break every chain, to set us free from the strongholds that keep us trapped in negative emotions and fears. Imagine carrying a heavy weight that you can't see, but you feel it, always there, pressing you down. That weight is like fear, anxiety, and sadness, and many of us carry it without realizing its impact on our lives. When you pray for emotional and spiritual freedom, you're asking for God to remove those burdens and to replace them with peace, courage, and joy. He is the ultimate healer, capable of freeing us from both the seen and unseen obstacles that prevent us from living fully. When we surrender our emotional and spiritual struggles to God, we invite His healing power into our lives. Whether it's an anxiety that keeps you up at night or a sadness that clouds your days, God's power is greater. Through prayer, we can experience divine freedom, one that is not bound by the circumstances around us. He can fill our hearts with courage and faith, allowing us to walk with a new strength, knowing we are not alone in our journey. When we surrender our financial lives and our families to God, something incredible happens. We're no longer carrying the weight of provision alone. We're placing it in the hands of the one who has limitless resources. It's easy to get caught up in the worries of life. How will we pay the bills, provide for our loved ones, or take care of our needs? But God's promise is clear. When we trust in Him, He provides for His children. This doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing, but it means we align our efforts with His will, and in return, He opens doors we couldn't have imagined. Picture a moment when you feel overwhelmed by the demands of life, perhaps a financial struggle or a family crisis. In these moments, it's important to pray and surrender these concerns to God. We ask for prosperity, for open doors, and for blessings not just for ourselves, but to also help others. It's a shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundant one. God's provision doesn't just meet our needs, it overflows, enabling us to be a blessing to those around us. Trusting God with our provision is not only about asking for what we need, but also about believing that He will provide in ways that exceed our expectations. In the Bible, Jesus reminds us that God knows our needs before we even ask, and He is more than capable of providing. So, when you pray for provision, do so with the confidence that God will open doors, remove obstacles, and lead you into the abundance He has prepared for you. Have you ever found yourself in a situation that seemed impossible to overcome? Maybe you were facing a physical ailment, emotional pain, or a situation so dire it felt beyond repair. In those moments, the call for healing and miracles becomes our greatest hope. Through prayer, we reach out to God's miraculous power, believing that He can restore not only what seems broken, but also what others may have deemed impossible to heal. Healing isn't just a physical restoration, it's emotional and spiritual too, renewing us from the inside out. Think about the times you felt spiritually drained, emotionally wounded, or physically unwell. These challenges can sometimes feel like mountains standing in our way. But just as the Bible recounts the countless miracles of healing, we too can pray with faith, trusting that God's healing power is just as real today as it was in the times of Jesus. When you pray for healing, you're not just asking for the removal of illness. You're asking for the restoration of your entire being, body, mind, and spirit. God's miracles are not bound by human limitations. They transcend time and space, bringing healing to areas we might think are beyond hope. Whether it's physical recovery, emotional restoration, or the healing of a broken heart, God's miraculous touch has the power to transform. The key lies in the belief that God can do what seems impossible. When we pray for miracles, we are embracing the truth that with God, all things are possible, and He is never too late to act. When facing persecution, whether from individuals, systems, or even invisible forces, it can feel like the weight of injustice is unbearable. But just as David did in the Bible, we can take our enemies and their attacks directly to God. In Psalm 109, David prayed for God to rise up and bring justice against those who had wronged him. This prayer is a powerful reminder that we don't need to fight every battle on our own. We can place our trust in God's hands, knowing He is the ultimate judge, capable of handling every injustice. Think about how often we feel powerless when dealing with people who seek to harm us. The world might seem unfair, and the forces against us might appear overwhelming. But when we place those who persecute us in God's hands, we are surrendering to His perfect judgment. Just as David called for every weapon formed against him to be destroyed, we too can pray for God's justice to prevail over those who wish to harm us. This isn't about revenge. It's about trusting that God will act on our behalf and bring righteousness to light. Prayer for justice doesn't just mean asking for retribution. It's an act of faith in God's sovereignty and perfect timing. It's a reminder that we don't have to carry the burden of fighting against persecution alone. God promises to defend His children, to be our refuge, and to fight for us when we cannot fight for ourselves. When we pray for justice, we are aligning ourselves with God's will, trusting that He will make things right in His own time. In the midst of life's challenges, there's a powerful declaration that we can make. God is greater than any adversity we face. The storms may rage, and the enemy may seem relentless, but our faith in God's power to protect and deliver is unshakable. Just like David declared in the Bible, we can boldly affirm that God will never abandon us. His promises are steadfast, and no matter the battle, He is always by our side. This is not just a hopeful wish. It's a declaration of trust in the one who is always faithful. Think about moments when life felt too much to handle, times when it seemed like there was no way out. It's easy to lose sight of hope, but God calls us to remember that He is faithful, even when we can't see the way forward. Our faith in him is a reminder that we are never alone in our struggles. Just as a shield protects the warrior in battle, so does God's faithfulness shield us in our toughest times. We can declare, with full confidence, that no matter what happens, we will trust in God's greater plan. Every day presents an opportunity to declare our trust in God. It's more than just a statement. It's an action, an active surrender of our doubts and fears. When we face challenges, instead of focusing on the magnitude of the problem, we can focus on the magnitude of God's faithfulness. By declaring our trust in him, we invite his peace to reign in our hearts, knowing that he is greater than any trial we face. Now that you've discovered the profound power of Psalm 109, it's time to put it into action. This prayer is not just words on a page, it's a living, breathing tool that can break chains, bring justice, and usher in divine protection over your life. But the real question is, are you ready to apply it? What would it look like for you to truly surrender your challenges to God, trusting in his power to deliver you from the snares of the enemy? Take a moment to reflect, and don't hesitate to leave a comment with your prayer requests. Let's stand together in faith. And remember, as you continue to apply these truths, your life can be transformed. If you want more powerful insights and prayers like this, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this message with others who need it. Let's keep growing together in faith and strength.